right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our office hours session. Um, I believe I heard and that we wanted to, in addition to having, a Q&A for our sessions, we also wanted to kind of incorporate review and training of, different steps in the system, how to walk through how to walk through different parts of it. I believe that was mentioned on a call. I may have missed it, Diana, but I believe I think we wanted to maybe walk through the intake process for this, and then open up to any questions that any of the grantees may have. So let me pull up our test environment here. Let's see. Screen here. Okay. Try different page here. Okay, that one's a little bit faster, so we'll do that one for now. Okay, so yeah, walking through the intake process, and of course, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to add those into the chat. Okay, let me use this environment now. It's loaded. That way, we don't have any interruptions if programmers push out updates. But to walk through, the intake process when we have a customer that we can add into our system here. Sorry, I need to refresh that. Okay. We begin by selecting the Add Customer button. We'll enter in the name here. Of course, anything with a red asterisk is a required field. Enter in the name, the phone number, email, address information. Then the type, will select inquiry. And then we have our text here. What is your role for entering this customer? Because we know that some grantees and navigators have access to multiple groups and providers. So if you're a provider, ClimateWorks or Workforce Hubs grantee, you'll select from here. And if you're a navigator, you would select from Navigator dropdown. But we'll select, since I'm logged in as a ClimateWorks grantee, we'll select the provider name here. And we'll go ahead and click Submit. And then when this is added, we'll then be taken to the pre-screening window. We have our application consent message here that we can confirm that we read the consent to the customer and they agree. So then we'll click Save. And then we'll be able to fill out the pre-screening window. And so we begin with, this person does not wish to be contacted. If, at any time, we can come back, after the pre-screening's been completed. If the customer indicates they don't want to be contacted, we can check this box here. But our first question, do you need any accommodations to complete the pre-screening, such as translation services, audio-visual accommodations, etc.? Yes or no. If we say no, that's it. But then if we say yes, then we can enter in the accommodations needed here. And we'll see that the information we entered on the previous window is pulled over into these fields here. But then we'll enter the date of birth for the customer, select how they heard about the program, And then we have questions gauging the customer's interest in several different things. So we have, are they interested in working in construction or building trades, in the clean energy field? If yes, we have a multi-select of which industries they'd be interested in learning more about. And then we also have, are you interested in applying for an apprenticeship program? And a question for, are you willing to enable to put in the time required by the program? And then this question is, is the customer experiencing any barriers that would keep them from, make it difficult for them for, attending the training? So we can make that selection there. I got our address information pulling in. And then as part of the eligibility check, we do have questions for, have they ever been incarcerated for felony misdemeanor, any involvement in the criminal legal system, graduate or currently in foster care, are they a displaced energy worker, or do they have any other barriers to employment? We can make those selections here. And we have our demographic questions here. We can check. So for racial or ethnic groups that best describe the veteran status, and then do they have a high school diploma or GED? And we can see based on what we've entered above in the pre-screening window, we have this kind of a preview of the pre-screening results. And based on the information entered, we have yes or no pulling in through here. And then we have a table below this to show, are they eligible for the program? Is there local availability? Does the customer, are they interested in apprenticeship and clean jobs? We have all green check marks based on what was entered above. And so then for program, we'll select Climate Works. If we needed to refer them to a navigator, we could. And when we do that, if we make that option, then we have the list of navigators that we can select from. But we'll say Climate Works and that they meet the pre-screening requirements. And we'll put in today's date for pre-screening. And then you can enter a follow-up date if you like, and then any additional notes can be added here. But once we fill out all this information for pre-screening, we'll click Submit. And then we just need to enter in the email confirmation and select this button here. And what this will do is it'll look for existing Illinois workNet accounts that may have been created before their time in CEJA, just to sync up with those. So the system will be checking here, and we can see in this case that an account has been made. So we didn't see, based on name, email address, and date of birth, that there's no existing or conflicting Illinois workNet accounts. So a new one's been created, and this is their login information, their username, and their password. You can see the status, new account created. And I know it's come up as a question before, but at the moment, when we see this, the new account's been created, at the moment, an email does not go out to that customer with the email address provided. So I would recommend just to take note of the username and password. That way it can be provided for the customer. But with the new account created, we can proceed with intake by selecting this button to continue the application. So we'll go ahead and click that button here. And we have our first page, or actually really the only page of the application, the demographic and contact information. So a lot of the information we entered in pre-screening is pulling over through here. But one question we do need to answer is, do you have an SSN? If we say yes, we can then enter the social security number and confirm by entering it again. We also have options for yes, but I don't have my card, and no. say yes, but I don't have my card for now. Then we'll go past our address and contact information. If they have a second phone that they can be reached by, well, before that, we do have for the phone number that was entered, we can select what type of phone it is. And then if they have another phone, another number can be entered here as well as the phone type, but that is optional. And then below this, we have what sex were you assigned at birth on your birth certificate? How do you currently describe yourself? Are you authorized to work in the US? And then we'll see the remaining questions that were answered in pre-screening have pulled over through here. So again, those are the eligibility questions for past incarceration, felony or misdemeanor, involvement in criminal legal system, graduate foster care, currently in foster care, displaced energy worker, any other barriers to employment, as well as the do you have a high school diploma, GED, or high SED? And then we also have a field here for the application submit date, which will automatically populate with today's date. But if you needed to go back and enter yesterday's date, you can certainly do so. But when we have the application filled out, we'll click save and go to the next page. And then this will show the eligibility page here that the criteria has been met. They have the high school diploma, GED, or high set, and at least one of the following criteria is met. And we can see between R3, environmental justice area, and formerly incarcerated that we do have those requirements here, but they did not meet this case here. But again, they just needed at least one. And because of the date of birth that we entered, they are in the adult program. So we'll go ahead and click continue to intake. That will complete our application for the customer in the system. And this is the application summary page. So we get a view of the information that was entered. And then at the bottom here, we'll select return to intake. And that will take us to the customer's intake tab in the system. And so number one, we can see pre-screening information. If we click this, this will show the form that we filled out here. View application completed on 2/26/25. That'll just take us back to the page where we were at if we needed to refer back to this. And then if at any point, if there are any funds required for completing intake, what we see on this page, we can check this box here and get a note from the system, the updated barrier reduction response, and then we can enter in a case note here. And so then we can see that that has been checked there. The next part of intake is the career assessment. So number two, we'll click the Add Career Assessment button. And when we do that, we have our assessment date that's pre-populated. What is your current employment status? We have a few options. I've not worked before. This will be my first job. I'm employed. I'm self-employed. I'm employed but received a notice of termination layoff. I'm employed and I've been actively looking for work, and I am unemployed, but I've not been actively looking for work. And we do see off to the right here that we do have recommendations listed as well for these last three. So provide customer link to the layoff assistance guide within workNet, provide customer information on unemployment services, and assess customer and provide barrier reduction services as needed. And if we say I have not worked before, this will be my first job, then some of the questions below will be hidden. But if they do have employment experience, then we would just enter in the fields we see here. So that would be the hourly wage, the name of the employer, the start date, end date, if applicable, job duties for the most recent job, reason for leaving if applicable. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any others. Okay. So yeah, those questions would be hidden if we have. This would be my first job. Below this, we have a few other questions. Some jobs have lifting requirements. Please indicate whether you're able to lift this amount of weight. So we'll make the appropriate selection here. And then similarly, many of the apprenticeship programs require people to stand for long periods of time. Please indicate whether you're able to stand for long periods of time. And then we have a couple more drop downs for career goal. And we can see different industries, apprenticeship, construction employment, the clean energy industries here are, starting a business. So we'll just make the appropriate selection. And then the same list here for the secondary career goal drop down. And then our last question here is, are there any specific careers they're interested in pursuing? Select at least one below. We have a lot of different checkboxes here broken out by field here. So solar and wind, automotive, electrical, green building construction, manufacturing, clean energy, technologies. So we'll make a selection here. And then we also have one last checkbox. I'm interested in learning about clean energy careers. So once we have all our information filled in for the career assessment, we'll click the Save button here. And we'll see that this has been added into this table. And if we click this, we'll see a summary of what, the answers, what fields we filled in here. And we can, take, additional, or, if you need to update this, if you need to delete this and add a new one, you can certainly do so there. Our next part of intake is the service needs assessment. So we'll click this blue button here and take us to the service needs assessment. And we have this broken out by different different topics or umbrellas of things that customers may need assistance with. And just to go through, we won't go through every question individually, but we have, as you can see, accommodations and student services, technology assistance for virtual learning, transportation, childcare, family member care, assistance with housing, food, healthcare, legal assistance, financial literacy, mentorship, application fees, and other support services. And depending on how the question's phrased, for a lot of these, they're yes or no questions, and for a few, not applicable. But as you're filling them out and going through them with the customers, they may need assistance with one of these items. So in this case here, if we take a look at, do you have a phone to communicate with your case manager, providers, and employers? So if you, in this case, if you say no, then we have recommendations on how to address that. So is this something that you can provide in-house, in-house support? In this case, we can provide support service for cell phone acquisition, or would it be you would send a referral to another organization to help the customer get a phone that they can use for communication purposes in the program, and then you can provide additional comments noted here. So we can say to assistance in acquiring a for communication purposes. Okay, so we can enter in a note there. And for each question, we do have that, and there's a different set of check boxes here, depending on the topic and the question. So we can see, for transportation, there's different ones, and maybe they just don't have the expenses to cover transportation, or they need help getting car insurance. They don't have transportation in general. You can check that, and again, you can send a referral to address the item, or it may be something that you can provide in-house. And so that's how the service needs assessment is structured here. Let's go ahead and select for some of these. Okay, so once we have that all filled out, we can click submit. And this will take us back to the intake page, but we'll be able to see in the table the service needs assessment that was completed. And if we go back to this, we can see, in this case where we left the note, we see that text that we added in the box there. We're going to provide a referral. Okay, so we'll go back to intake here. All right, and then the next part of intake, we have, this is automated here, the customer status applicant. So based on where the customer is in the system, this will automatically update when we start a service for a customer. They'll become enrolled. The system will automatically update that. So for now, we just have the status of applicant, but as you're getting through intake, if the customer says, I no longer want to participate, we can check this box here, indicating that they've declined. We'll get a system prompt here. Then we'll see that updated automatically. The customer is not enrolled, declined to participate. And if we accidentally check that, you can uncheck it. And it'll go back to applicant. And then a newer feature in the system we have is the ability to transfer customers to a different navigator or grantee. And so if I'm a ClimateWorks grantee, if I needed to choose a different ClimateWorks grantee for this customer, I can make that selection and then submit the transfer. And when the transfer is submitted, that other organization that I'm transferring them to, they'll receive an email and a link to the customer's intake page that they can respond to the transfer request with. And when they accept that, if they choose to accept the transfer, then Frank Smith, this customer, would then show in CEJA Hub C4's customer list. And I no longer have access. I, with I think the community partnership, would no longer have access to the customer in the system. So you can transfer, if you're in ClimateWorks, you can transfer to another ClimateWorks grantee, or you can transfer one to Workforce Hubs. Additionally, you can also select refer to navigator. And so you could make that selection for which navigator you want to refer them to. By submitting transfer. And with each of those scenarios, the members or the people who have access to the CEJA system with in this drop down here, they'll receive an email for that transfer request. And then down here is just text we have for how ensuring the customer they have access to their worknet account, how they can view their career plan, and so forth there. And so that's the intake process. And I just do want to note over here off to the left, we have, and it appears I believe in most, if not all of these tabs here, we have this profile for customer information. So we see the email, the date of birth, click see all, then we see their worknet username, phone number, most recent credential. We don't have anything yet, so that's not applicable. And then we also see the customer status. So currently Frank is an applicant, and then we have the customer's address and their Illinois WorkNet ID number. And then we also, if the customer gets locked out of their WorkNet account, we can reset their password here and, enter the password, confirm the password, and click update. But that is the how to, just kind of walking through a review of the intake process. Are there any questions about intake? I see Jackie, you raised a hand.
Oh, good morning. I'm Jackie with the Macedonia Development Corporation. We're the East St. Louis Workforce Hub. I've been on I've been on all these calls, but I think I want to understand what is required of the navigator to complete in the intake steps. I've heard a couple different things kind of along the way. We just aren't there yet. So is it like, are they required to do pre-screen application in both assessments, or is it just pre-screen, or is it just pre-screen and application?
Well, I may,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say I may kind of refer to the the RAs to answer that, but I do want to note that everything we covered now, that's what the navigators have access to for each customer profile. They won't be seeing these extra tabs here, but
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and Jackie, this is Michelle, and this is what the navigator should complete. Everything that you just saw.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
And right, again, David, they will not see the career plan, the referral, and the program completion tab, correct?
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to jump in and add that the hubs also have access to this. That's why I think we kind of dance around a little bit on the navigators required to, just because they should be doing this if the navigators are the one working with them, right? But if somebody comes into the hub, there's not necessarily a reason for us to bounce them around to the navigator. But
yes,
we want to try to limit that, right? So that most people are going through the navigator.
right.
Okay,
Thanks for making that comment, Nate. Yeah, anyone can do this piece, but the navigator definitely is supposed to complete that full section.
Thank you, Michelle. Nate. Yolanda, I see, looks like you had your hand raised as well.
Yes, I have a couple of questions, and I don't know, I don't know if the questions are just some things that I noticed. So first, I noticed that when you put in the career assessment information, you selected that, I think you selected that they were employed, right? Are not employed. Okay, so this is what's happening. So a lot of my people are not employed. So when I click, because all these other ones is start, it didn't happen to you though. When I click that I'm not employed, or they're not employed or not working, the ones at the bottom, it prompts me to go back and respond to those questions. And a lot of the people that's in the cohort that we have don't have jobs. So then I have to go in and just like make a date and put a 0 into the column where it says, and yours looking a little different than mine. Could you go up to is that the beginning of your application? Because my application doesn't look like that.
Are you talking the application or the career assessment?
I'm talking about the pre the application. Well, no, the career assessment. So when you go into the career assessment, let me just click on it. It says add a career assessment. So on mine it has what is your current job? And then when I do that, I can put have no job. Then it asks for hourly rate wage, which I don't see on yours. So on ours, it's asking for hourly wage, and it start employer name, a start date, end date. That's what's in my career assessment.
So it looks so yeah, I think
Yes.
when you first open it, it shows all this,
Yes.
but when you select, I've not worked before, this will be my first job, are those
No,
questions not hiding?
so go down and click, I am not employed or something like that. Go down further, just click one where you don't have to answer. So it makes you answer all these questions anyway. It won't save and let you go forward. So if I'm not
Oh,
working, I shouldn't have to answer. If the person is not working, I shouldn't have to answer those other questions, but it makes me answer those.
yeah.
And I have to just
So,
like make stuff up like NA and make a date and just end date the same. I shouldn't have to do that. So those
and
shouldn't be, my question, I guess my problem is those probably shouldn't be starred.
well, I think when this was set up, and maybe we need to add, text here or RAs
Yeah.
for the RAs, maybe. But I believe when this, for these other two, I think the understanding was um, that we would enter, the most recent job information if you selected, one of the two, unemployed, options here.
Yeah, I think
'Cause
that was the idea, and maybe we do need to just put some additional guidance there, some text as to what you're supposed to do, like maybe hourly wage at last job, employer name at last job. Because the thing we're trying to get at there is, at the end of all this, did the participant get a job that, can we demonstrate that that job was an improvement over what they were doing before? And I get, and I understand, obviously, like, well, it's better than being unemployed for sure, but that's where that came from. But if we need to revisit that, maybe we can discuss how important that information is.
so maybe it should say, what was your last or current job? Instead of what is your current job? Like what is your current employment? It should probably be what was your most
recent.
most recent or current employment or something like that.
Mhm.
Maybe that would
Mhm.
help because then they could put something in there. I mean,
Yeah.
because it won't save. With my
Right.
experience, I don't know about anybody else. It won't save unless I fill out all the starred information, which then I have to go back and put a 0 and then a fake date and NA. So, and so my other, if I can move on to the rest of my questions, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Dave. So my other question was, and maybe this is nothing, because under where it says when you under the career after you get finished in the intake process, and it asks about the refund for completing the intake, like what would that be? Like, what would that be to me? I'm just understanding why that's trying to understand why that's there. What would that be? Because I don't want to miss that if I'm like, what would be the, I mean, like, what was the purpose of that? Is anybody else using it too? I don't know.
The RAs may have a better example, but at least, I think what comes to mind, would be, in pre-screening, we have a question, do you have any accommodations to complete
Okay.
this pre-screening or application, such as, translation services, audiovisual accommodations, et cetera. So I think if, any of those accommodations were needed, and, maybe, your organization didn't have them, so you needed to, pull that in somehow, through another party that had, a cost tied to it, then I believe that, would
Such as using an
be an
interpreter or
example.
something like that, right? Or
Yeah.
disability. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and so my other question is, or did I see in there when you were typing in inside of the worknet, the needs assessment, was that like a Grammarly thing at the bottom of it? Is that, like I saw a little green?
Um, yeah, I think that might be tied to my browser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is the transfer thing. Okay, now this is, so when I am finished doing intake, because I don't have a navigator, I am automatically, so transferring them to like our Champaign County RPC. And when I do the transfer, then they're required to do a lot of other stuff. How much at the hub, because Parkland is the hub, are we continually, and this might be further discussion, continually doing anything in the, after, I know we just talked about intake, but my brain is still going further, in these programs to kind of monitor that, right? Are we still like, because I see it says at the top, it says something about view. I don't see it on this one, but like view the process assessment. So I clicked on that yesterday and I couldn't see anything. And I'm thinking as a workforce hub, like it should be, is it in you guys' mind that we are as a hub following the students across the board to make sure things are getting done? That's kind of, I guess, my question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, y'all. My
Oh yeah,
brain
yeah.
is
So
gone.
I was just gonna say, so David, I don't think she shouldn't need to do a transfer, right, to her own subgrantee. Can't she just enroll them in the subgrantee program?
Right. Yeah. So if you have sub grantees, let's see, let me go down here. And I think I have a sub grantee with who I'm logged in with. Yeah. So you would see this might be the test environment. But you would see, in the provider, you'd see, in this case, I had community partnership, but I think it was at Zion College was a sub grantee of mine. So if I needed to, add, or, tie this customer to a sub grantee, I could make that selection there.
Okay.
And if you needed to do that transfer, so if they show up in the sub grantee's customer list, you could certainly do that by making that selection through here.
And that's what we've been doing, is transferring them over to, I don't know, I'm going to be honest. I don't think, I know I transferred some, but I'm thinking my sub grantee is going in there and transferring them theirself. I think, because I don't remember I'm new, you guys, just so bear with me. But when I go in, I'm thinking they have the same access in this system as I do
And you can
under the intake.
you can still see all the customers with you and with the subgrantees.
Okay.
It can't. That was a question. I didn't know.
Oh, you asking me?
Yeah.
So I can see all my customers, but I don't, yeah, I can still access my customers, the students' information.
Okay.
But I wasn't sure when we say transfer, when I'm transferring them, am I cutting off some of my limited access to see what's going on because I transferred them? But as the workforce hub, we should still be able to see, like the things that are getting like done. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure if that's what part of the workforce hub component is supposed to do. I guess it's the question.
Yeah. So if you transfer the customer to a sub grantee, you'll still be able to access that customer's record and see everything that the sub grantee sees for that customer. So you'd still have, access and see, that information.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to case manage them throughout as well. And like, if the sub grantee is part of that, I think that's a workflow process for you and the sub grantee to kind of figure out, okay, who's doing what on the case management, who's tracking this person through this.
Yeah, and that's okay, and I guess that's the next. Okay, so another different, and I'll let everybody else, because of my other stuff is beyond that. And I think Nate, we're gonna meet because I have a ton of stuff. But I would like, cool. Yeah, but I would also like, because I know we said this on the last week call about being able to have a training on like how to, because I think David said, or another guy said, that when we're giving out like the stipends and all those type of things or bus passes, we're supposed to be able to put them in a computer into the system, and I'm not sure where all that goes. So I don't know, like, if I can get some kind of personal training around that, because I don't know if anybody else is having those issues, or if they know how to do that, but I'm only like barely 3 weeks in, so I need to kind of know how to do that.
Yeah, no, that's certainly something we can provide, maybe on, next week's call even. Just kind of, managing the services and, entering the costs for those services. Um, and I do have an instructional, video and, some instructions I can also send to you
Okay.
that, you can take a look at. And of course, if there's still, questions or something, doesn't if you need want to have more conversation about that, we can. But I know with these office hours too, because there's new staff members kind of getting on board, we do want to provide demonstrations of how to do various things in the system.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, everybody. I'm sorry if I'm hogging the time.
No, that's what this time is for questions. Julie, I see you have your hand up as well.
Yes, my question's actually related to the last thing you were doing. So if you're going to cover it next week, that might be helpful. I'm a provider, and I'm actually asking this question on behalf of my navigators who don't have access to the system yet. But they're asking where they're going to enter referrals, and if they're like getting bus passes or something, how are they keeping track of that? The only place I found to do that was actually under the career plan, and then going in and choosing the wraparound services. And then I saw that you could add there, but it sounds like they're not going to have access to that tab. So is there a different tab page for them? Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say, David, this is the Alton situation that we need to talk about. No, that's okay. That's okay. We're going to figure that out.
Okay.
We're going to figure that out, Julie.
I just didn't know if it was something I could show them in my system, or is it going to look totally different as far as what their referral part is?
It's accessing. It's
okay.
I finally understand what's going on. So
okay, no worries. I just didn't, and it sounded like maybe that would be covered, but I just wanted to ask on their behalf because we were discussing. They've been sitting next to me and learning how to do some stuff. So
okay, great. Well, I'll see if we can get something scheduled.
Okay.
I'll try to find a time to talk to David this week.
Okay.
And get something figured out.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. I just thought I'd ask while I was here.
No, that's great. I know,
Thanks.
ask away, but I just wanted you to know that.
Sure.
We'll
Thank you.
I do see we have a question in the chat. How do we change a participant from applicant to enrolled? That's something that we can go over. It won't take too long to do. So, yeah, customer on screen here we have as an applicant. And we can update their status by going over their career plan. And then on number 3, add steps and services. This will be the tab where we can manage services, including entering costs and marking services as complete, adding credentials, and so forth. We do have some services. Well, before I get ahead of myself, so we have step 1 is the area where you can add services. Step 2 is where you can take the services that get added here and assign them to a goal. And our goals are pre-populated by the system. They're the ones you see in these purple boxes here. And we do have services that are automatically populated in the training program goal. And so, you see all these here. But to change the customer status from applicant to enrolled, what we'll do is we'll edit the service. And it's to make them enrolled, it's any service. So you can click this pencil icon next to the service here. Okay. So then we'll update our service here. We have for this service, we have a few different tabs here. This first one, status default. See the name of the service, the goal that it's in. So we'll enter our planned start date. So let's say today. And the planned completion date, we could say a couple weeks from now, March 14th. And the average weekly hours this customer will be devoting to employability skills and job readiness training. So let's just enter 15 there. And then for the status, we'll enter started open. And when we have this entered, we'll go ahead and click update customer service, and this will prompt a case note. So we'll enter in the header and then in the body of the case note, and then we'll save the case note without sending a message or email to the customer. Oh, I forgot about that. So then we get this error message here. The provider ID field is required. And so that's under this service provider tab. So we'll go ahead and select, since this is my program and I'm offering them, this service here, I'll make that selection here for community partnership. And then I can go back to update the customer service. You can see that case note information still there. So we'll click add. And the system will let us know that it has updated successfully. And then if we look over here, we'll see next to customer status enrolled. And if we go back to our progress page, and this is something to, okay, no, it did update it right there. So customer status, enrolled. But something I do want to point out, we can cover this further on another call. So I know we're a few minutes from time. As you make changes in the system, and if you go back to, if you're trying to address some of these flags that we see, like in this case, we can show a good example of this. So, for intake, we have a yellow flag. And, next to intake in this info bubble here, we have, kind of definitions of the different flags. So if it's good and green, then, whatever action was needed, we, completed it. If it's yellow, it needs attention. If it's red, it's not complete within 10 days of adding the customer into the system. Or if it's gray, no actions, needed. But in this case, we can see, yellow for attention. We completed the career assessment. The system's saying we haven't completed the service needs assessment, but we are enrolled. But we did complete the service needs assessment. But this, the last time this data was updated was about a half hour ago. And so the system, 30 minutes ago, we didn't have this item completed. So we can come back and press this button, refresh status, kind of update and run through the system. And now we can see that we have, green good over here and service needs assessment is good over here. And the, last updated is, 11:54. So right now, and we do have an overnight sync. It's late in the evening that'll kind of do that refresh automatically, but just something to keep in mind as you're making changes for, whatever, row that you're looking at in the system, whether it's intake, referral, participation requirements, career plans, services, credentials, and program completion status. Just something to keep in mind, because I know that does come up. And even in testing too, I have certainly forgotten before, like I thought I made these changes. Why is this flag still this color? And it's like, oh, I just need to refresh the data so the system picks up on those changes. So something to keep in mind as you're updating flags and records in the system for different customers.
And David, if I can just mention, hopefully you could do a whole session on enrolling in services, because just getting them enrolled isn't enough. And I'm seeing they need to be enrolled in all of those career plan services. At the bottom there where it says attention.
Oh, yes.
And so I think it would be helpful to walk through how that works, because I'm seeing that not happening. And I just think they just don't understand. And I believe Yolanda might have had her hand up and we missed it.
Oh.
Did we get your questions answered?
Yeah, well, yeah, because that was my question, and we were meeting yesterday about this. Do they need to be enrolled in all those sessions? And because I have people that are pretty much doing everything they're supposed to do. And I'm looking at like one of my people that's really doing everything. It says good, but under his name, it still says applicant. It doesn't say enrolled, but he's doing everything. So now I don't know so I guess now I need to go back in and figure out how to enroll. Because I mean, like it's almost like the end of the cohort. And I think most of mine says applicant instead of enrolled. And so I think that's and I think it's maybe because of that career plan stuff is not done right. So I'm not sure, but I'm in a process of trying to update everything in the CEJA system to make sure that you guys are getting information that you need to have in there to say that the program is working well and this is what's going on, and me trying to understand how to get it in there. So I did print something out, but I mean, I'm not sure if that's what I need to do or if that's what our sub grantee needs to do. So that's a kind of like a two things. So I'm not sure. And it might be my thing.
Well, I think from our perspective, the question of should the grantee or sub grantee do it, I think that's up to y'all to figure out.
Okay.
Just in terms of workflow between the two. And I don't know if David has input on the other question there.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be, you mentioned that, you may have you have some examples where, it seems like maybe they should be enrolled, but they're still showing up as applicant. Yeah, we can connect offline
Okay.
and, just to make sure, take a look at the customer records, see if there's something we're missing or, if there is an issue in the system. Then we can certainly have a programmer take a look at that.
How's the meeting?
It's going good.
Is it still going?
Yeah, I'm talking to David now. He's gonna set some time aside for. I'm sorry, you guys, unless you just walked in. She's taking a break from another meeting.
Sorry to interrupt.
And I have been having 1,000 questions, but David said he's gonna be kind enough to work with me offline for some of the
Great.
stuff.
Perfect.
Oh,
Thank
you
you,
want that?
David.
Are
And
most of the
Nate's-
rest of your questions the reporting system? Because maybe I can just invite David to our Monday meeting.
Yeah, maybe we could just do that on the Monday meeting. That'd be great. Yes. Yep.
Are most of
that'll
your
work.
questions are most of your questions related to the system then?
Yes, it's all those related questions, and then also being able to divvy up what we do, and what I'm gonna do on my end, and versus what RPC would be doing on the other end for the customer. That way we're not overlapping, and if it's me that needs to go back in and update everybody to enrolled. I'm not sure. So I guess just really being able to hammer all this out so it can be a clear process. Yep.
Yeah. Certainly. I do see one other question in the chat. Do participants need to complete all assessments that are in Illinois WorkNet, such as Employment 101, self-evaluation, etc.? I know I briefly spoke about this in the past, but it will state attention on other participant requirements. I just wanted to see if there's progress on this so that it can be changed from attention to good. So Employment 101 is a requirement. I believe that was mentioned in one of the grant or procedures manuals. But some of the other assessments that were referenced here, like self-evaluation, you can get to this a number of ways through under participant summary tools, assessments, and there's also a section within the career plan where we have these other assessments. But the answer to those other assessments, no, not necessarily these. The ones right here where my cursor is, skills and interests, disability, benefits estimator, E101, self-evaluation, observational and worksite. Those are just within WorkNet. So if the customer, perhaps in the past or in a different program, these are just assessments or, evaluations that are housed within WorkNet and not, aside from Employment 101, not necessarily required. But if there are other assessments, and these are ones that are not available through WorkNet, like I know some that have come up before, like the TABE or the CASAS tests, those assessments and results, they can be added through here. You can search for those, and make the selection and continue to fill out the results there, which we can certainly cover more in detail in another session. But I also wanted to answer for Employment 101. Earlier on when we were adding the customers, we had that account, where we had the system was fetching accounts, I believe is the term it said on the screen, but where the system was looking for any existing Illinois WorkNet accounts, and it could sync up with them. So, maybe the customer had an account before and they've completed Employment 101. That account can get pulled over and, the system would recognize Employment 101 as having been completed. Additionally, if that's not the case, though, if this customer is brand new to Illinois WorkNet, they can access Employment 101 with their accounts, with that email or that username and password that was generated, earlier on when they log into WorkNet. They can access Employment 101 through, my dashboard dropdown, Employment 101, and then they can complete, and in this case, I previously completed, but then they can, complete Employment 101 and assist, and with the account, the username that's tied to their account in CEJA, that will, pull through here. And if there's one other note, if there is a, example, maybe Frank had another account that he completed Employment 101 with, we can have our programmers, merge those accounts so that, that this would show up as, Frank having completed Employment 101, and this could then become, a green flag for good. All right, I know we're a couple minutes over. Are there any other questions anybody has? I think I've answered everything in the chat. All right, well, if not, we will go ahead and end here. I'll post the recording of this to the partner guide. And yeah, if you have any questions, certainly reach out to regional administrators, send me an email or submit a help request through the system.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, David.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.